I want you to hit me as hard as you can.
Just a couple of weeks ago, the release of Dolittle resulted in one of the biggest box office bombs in recent memory. The aftershocks led to tons of headlines proclaiming Robert Downey Jr.'s first post-Marvel Studios project as a signal for him to return to his iconic performance as Tony Stark. Since his final appearance as Iron Man in 2019's Avengers Endgame, fans, critics, and even the entire film Spider-Man Far From Home have lauded Downey's run as the face of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It is somewhat shocking then to think back not even 7 years ago to the release of Iron Man 3, which many looked at as one of the weakest MCU films with a twist that pissed off so many fanboys. But Iron Man 3 is not only a great film, but that twist was absolutely brilliant. I'm Alex Mady, and welcome to the Unpopular Opinion. You might think it odd that Iron Man 3 would be up for the Unpopular Opinion treatment based on the fact that it has a 79% positive rating on Rotten Tomatoes and the incredible $1.2 billion in worldwide box office. But there seems to be a great deal of hate for the film emanating from the online community, including avid readers of JoBlo.com. Now, as the guy who hated the Avengers, you may not take my opinion seriously, but I am here to tell you that Iron Man 3 is the best film in the Iron Man trilogy, as well as the best portrayal of Tony Stark to date. As the lead-off to Phase 2 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Iron Man 3 had the difficult task of following up the instantly beloved The Avengers. What Joss Whedon's film was able to do was pull together 4 distinct and different franchises, all unique in tone, style, and setting. Whedon was able to unite these heroes in an organic manner for a mega film the likes of which we had never seen. But after that, and knowing they would reunite a few years later for Avengers Age of Ultron, how do you send them on their own adventures without relying on that team dynamic? While Captain America the Winter Soldier and Thor the Dark World tried their own approaches to making this work, Iron Man 3 had a different challenge, specifically the Iron Man film that came right before it. To be blunt, Iron Man 2 was a friggin' mess. There is no doubt it was Marvel's first misstep in their cinematic universe. Jon Favreau struck gold with Robert Downey Jr. and a great origin film in 2008's Iron Man, but the second film felt like it suffered from sequelitis. Everything was bigger, louder, better budgeted, but it came off as hollow and flat. There was no true progression of the character aside from the introduction of War Machine, and the villains felt underwhelming. Sam Rockwell was wasted as Justin Hammer despite showcasing some sweet dance moves, and Mickey Rourke, riding on the success of The Wrestler, was nowhere near the caliber of bad guy that would present any sort of threat to Iron Man. So what do you do when your third film absolutely has to succeed? Well, you bring in new blood behind the camera. Shane Black, Robert Downey Jr.'s buddy from Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, came in and took the Iron Man story in a darker direction without sacrificing any of what made the character great: one-liners, comebacks, and a sense of humor. What worked so well with the first Iron Man was that it defied convention. It went with a character who was, until that point, not a top-tier Marvel hero, and made him the cinematic equivalent of how Captain America is looked at in the pages of Marvel Comics. So, instead of making Iron Man 3 bigger and louder than the second film, Shane Black actually scaled it back a bit. Sure, the destruction of Tony's cliffside home, the air rescue of Air Force One, and the closing Iron Core battle all provide big screen grandeur, but in between are truly developed moments that give us insight into Tony Stark as a man and the after effects of what happened to him during the Battle of New York. Much of this is a credit to Robert Downey Jr. and his amazing portrayal of Stark. While Downey has recently stated it would take a super compelling reason to reprise the role, there is always the possibility that someone else could take up the mantle of his character. But I cannot envision anyone being Iron Man or Tony Stark in the same way Robert Downey Jr. has. But never say never.
Whatever.
I could go on and on with how great the entire cast of the film is. Gwyneth Paltrow, Jon Favreau, Don Cheadle, and Paul Bettany are all amazing and solid as their characters are given more to do this time around. But new cast members who really shine here include Rebecca Hall, James Badge Dale, and Guy Pearce, all strong, fully realized additions to the Iron Man franchise. But it's the featured villain who steals the show. From the moment we first heard him in the teasers, everyone knew Ben Kingsley was going to be amazing as the Mandarin. His menace and delivery of his threats is imbued with such a level of evil that there was no doubt he was going to finally be a worthy adversary for Iron Man. But that's also what led to the incredible letdown many felt when the Trevor Slattery reveal was made. When Iron Man 3 debuted, the Mandarin twist was the biggest debate topic online, as everyone and their mother took a side on the narrative decision. Initially, I understood why everyone felt shortchanged at the notion that Guy Pearce's Aldrich Killian would be the true Mandarin, but upon repeated viewings, I have no doubt Marvel had been planning this all along. Writers Drew Pearce and Shane Black of course have admitted to coming up with the plot device, but as we learned at San Diego Comic-Con 2019, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings will debut the real Mandarin, something also teased in the awesome Marvel one-shot All Hail the King. But what this plot twist also should have driven into everyone's mind is that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is not Marvel Comics. If you want to see your favorite characters, story arcs, or images come to life, this is not the place for you. The MCU is an alternate reality, a place where the comics serve as a jumping off point, but there's no binding requirement to make the movies exactly like the comics. Guy Pearce's Aldrich Killian is clearly the bad guy from the moment he appears on screen. In many ways, he's the realization of what should have been done with Rockwell's Justin Hammer in Iron Man 2. Taking a man scorned by Tony Stark before he became a hero, and seeing how much that would incentivize his madness has become a somewhat overused plot device, as it also appeared in both Spider-Man Homecoming with Michael Keaton's Adrian Toomes, as well as Jake Gyllenhaal's Quentin Beck in Spider-Man Far From Home. But Pearce is the mirror of Tony Stark, a man whose physical impairments were overcome by science, and yet used them for evil rather than good. It is a fitting comparison for Stark that would inform his eventual exploits against Ultron as well as Thanos. Rebecca Hall's Maya Hansen, a far more significant villain in the pages of Marvel Comics, is underused in Iron Man 3, but her connection with Tony Stark and eventual turn from villain back to good helps progress the story and gives us Gwyneth Paltrow donning an Iron Man suit for the first time before eventually getting powers, for a short while at least. Paltrow, who would go on to become Rescue in Endgame, does the most heavy lifting she has done in any MCU film, and showed us she is way more than Tony Stark's paramour. Between Paltrow and Rebecca Hall, we have two of the strongest female characters in any Marvel film up to that point. And that's why Iron Man 3 is by far the best Iron Man film, and one of the top movies in the MCU to date. For my money, only Captain America the Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, Thor Ragnarok, and Infinity War and Endgame are better. There are so many perfect moments in this film that cannot be rivaled. Tony's friendship with Ty Simpkins' Harley Keener, which have even garnered the character an appearance at Tony's memorial in Endgame, Happy Hogan's burgeoning romance with a fellow Downton Abbey viewer, the way Extremis was visualized, all the way to the closing moments where Tony finally eliminates what forced him to become Iron Man, and thereby evolving the character into something else entirely. The accomplishment of Iron Man 3 is in that it progresses Tony Stark in a way the prior film did not, while also putting pieces in motion for Avengers Age of Ultron. Marvel Studios are responsible for creating products. To call their movies art in the traditional sense may be an overstatement, but there is absolutely a master plan that makes these movies work as independent series as well as one massive film franchise. With each successive film, the culmination of each phase comes into focus, and we sit back in awe as to how the hell Kevin Feige and a crew of thousands managed to make it all work. Iron Man 3 launched Phase 2 of the MCU and did so in grand fashion. While we eventually got to see Tony Stark's arc conclude through Captain America Civil War and the Avengers film, Iron Man 3 ends the trilogy without peer. Of all the third films in the MCU so far, Iron Man 3 is the most complete and the only one that doesn't rely on another Avenger to wrap up the main character's story. Well, unless you count that great post-credit sequence with Bruce Banner. But hey, that's just my unpopular opinion. Tell us yours in the comments below. I'm Alex Mady with JoBlo.com.